Just want to share what we did today for our homeschooling session. So as usual, we started with our daily calendar. So she did the date, the weather, and as I mentioned in my last video, she always tells me in a sentence on her iPad what each one is. Then we move on to our daily work binder. So she does her days of the week in order. She does her months of the year in order. And again, she does this while I play a song on my phone on YouTube. So we do a days of the week song, which is the Addams Family version. Then we do months of the year song, and she just follows along and fills it in order. We're going back to practicing numbers. So she's pretty good with printing all her numbers, and we've already done these 1 to 10. So it's not so much for the writing that I'm reviewing it. It's more for the counting. And of course, the more writing practice she gets, the better. But I more just want to do it for counting because she counts really well up to 5. But then after 5, she tends to always be off by a number. So we're going back to number 6, and we're going from 6 to 10. And we're going to review them. She will continue practice writing it, but I more just want to work on the counting with her. Then we're doing for writing. We are now practicing writing on the line. So I've retired her tracing worksheets that she used to do before, which I showed in my last video. And now there's no more tracing. Now she's just writing it on her own. She'll do a uppercase and a lowercase for the letter, and she has to stay within the line. So that's what we're working on now. And then there's always a little activity here. So this one was color the capital A apples red and the lowercase green, and she did that. So this sheet is actually from the Spectrum series. So I got these on Amazon, and if you're interested, Spectrum has these activity books for math and language, and they have all kinds. So this one is spelling, but they have one for reading, they have one for writing, they have for math, different math ones. And I went with spelling because that's just something we're working on, and this is the level we're on. Now with the Spectrum books, it gives you lessons to follow in order. And you'll see for letters of the alphabet for printing, like the first lesson, you would start with I, L, T, and K letters. And the reason you'd start with those letters is for a beginner who's just starting to write is just because they're the easiest letters of the alphabet to write because they're mostly straight lines, right? And then the letters get progressively a little bit harder. So I don't follow the order because Layla has already printed all her letters. She already knows how to print all her letters. So I'm not really worried about following a particular order, but you can. It does come with lessons, and the lessons are in order of how you could go about doing them. So this is what the book looks like. So you'll see it's just like the one we did today. You practice a lower and uppercase, and it's in the line, and then there's a little activity to go for that letter. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on to replace the tracing sheets, just writing the letters in between the lines. The sheets are double-sided in the Spectrum books, and they are tearable, so you are able to tear them out of the book neatly, which I did to put in her daily work binder. And since they're double-sided, we just do both sides, 2 sides a day. We got through it pretty quickly, so she did A and E just because they happen to be on the same page. And the activity for E was circle the E in each word, and she did great on that. Okay, so once again, this is from the Spectrum series books. It's practicing spelling and writing in between the lines. And we're doing the 2 sides because I put it in her daily work binder, and that's going to replace our tracing sheets. We did a math worksheet, number sequencing, because that's something we're working on, and she does pretty good with it. This one threw her off a little bit because the 1 was missing. It started at 2, so I had to help her a little bit with this one, but she did really good with those first 2. So that was our daily work for today. And then for activities, we did some CVC spelling cards. I just do like 3 at a time. So, sorry, I just erased that. So I sound out the word for her and she writes it in, and she knows all her sounds. So she does it pretty independently. So I'll put one card in front of her at a time. And so for example, this one, I'll say bug, or I'll ask her what it is first. She'll say bug, and then I'll say, okay, let's spell it. B-U-G, bug. So she writes it as I sound it out for her. And we're working on middle sounds right now. So at the end of each one, I ask her, circle the middle sound. And so she circles the middle sounds because that's just something we're working on right now, middle sounds. Because she's great with what the first sound is, but she needs work on what is the middle and the last sound. We haven't done ending sounds yet. We're just working on middle right now. So same thing, I'll put this card in front of her by itself, and I'll ask her, Layla, what is the frog doing? And she'll say hop. So I'll say, okay, let's spell it out. Hop. And she spells it as I sound it out for her. And again, circle the middle sound, and she did. Okay, and so that's how we're using CVC cards for spelling and circling the middle sound. This is an activity that I found on Teachers Pay Teachers. There's another part to it, which we'll do either tomorrow or next week. I'll share it in my next video. But today, this was the first part. So there's 4 categories: farm, zoo, and then there's an ocean animal and a pet animals. So today we sorted farm and zoo animals only. Next time we'll do ocean and house pets. So basically I put these in front of her. I put the stack of cards here and I just had her sort it. So for example, the tiger, I'll say, oh, Layla, where does the tiger live? In the farm or in the zoo? And then she'll sort it. Tigers live in the zoo, so it goes under zoo. Rooster, where does the rooster live? She'll say on the farm. So she'll sort it and puts rooster on the farm, and so on and so forth. So she just worked through the deck of cards and she just sorted each animal just like this based on where they live, in the farm or in the zoo. Okay, and there's like a whole bunch, and I made sure to put aside only the farm and zoo animals, right? So like that. So as she did each card from the pile, however, and as she was sorting, I had her go here on her iPad, because this is always a goal. Every day we incorporate using our sentences in everything we do. She went here to her animals folder. In the animal folders, I have subfolders. So land animals, and then more specifically, I have zoo animals, insect, water animals, farm animals. Okay, and then we even have animal features and animal sounds and habitats. We didn't really do any of those today. We were just focusing on just the animals themselves and if they live on the farm or in the zoo. So let's say, for example, she picked up the rooster card. So I would ask her, Layla, where does the rooster live? And she can verbally tell me farm. So then I'd say, okay, use your sentence. So she'd go here to her farm animals, and then she would say, for example, if it's the rooster.
Rooster. Lives on.
Sorry, I did that twice.
Farm. Rooster lives on farm.
Then I'd be like, good job, Layla, you're right. The rooster does live on the farm, right? And then let's say the next card in the deck she picked was the elephant. And so again, I ask her, Layla, where does the elephant live? And then I remind her she has to use her sentence. So we go back to the animal folder, and this time she'll go to zoo animals, and same thing. So elephant.
Elephant lives in zoo. Elephant lives in zoo.
Okay, so that's what we did for each one. Each of these cards that she would pick from the deck, she would sort them. And before she moved on to the next one, I would ask her, where does that specific animal live? And she would have to tell me just like that on her iPad in a sentence. Okay, so that's what we did today for our animal theme, because that's the theme this month. And then we also read this little story. So I found this at Dollarama. They had a bunch of these like cardboard books. I also got one for ocean animals. So I got really lucky with this find. So it was from Dollarama in the book section. Who's Playing on the Farm? And it's very simple, so it's perfect for beginner readers. And I read it for her, but I make sure that my daughter points to each word as I'm reading it. I just want her to develop that habit. So we would read it, she points along, and before she turns this over, there's like a little clue. So I would ask her, Layla, who do you think it is? Right? And a lot of times she won't answer, she's just quick to flip. And then we'll read it and I'll say, what is it? And she'll say, a rooster. And then I'll ask her, oh, what does the rooster say? And she would do the animal sounds because she really gets a kick out of animal sounds. So the next one, same thing. We would read it. She would point each word. Here's a little clue. So you can ask, what do you think it is? Or who do you think it is? Flip it over. Oh, what is it? A cow. What does the cow say? And then you can ask, or we can ask, what color is the cow? And stuff like that, just to make the book a little bit more interactive. Okay, so it's the same thing. Each page is exactly the same. It's very simple. The mystery flaps make it fun and interactive. And at the end of each page, I would ask her a question like, what does it say? Or what color is it? Or anything like that. Okay, so that was the book we did also for our animal theme. And then lastly, every session, as I mentioned in my last video, we end with our sight word activity book. So today, I call this our magic word of the day. So today, the magic word of the day was where. I have her type it out first on her iPad, on her keypad. Then she traces it, then she writes it on her own. And then she has to fill in the blank and we read the sentence together. She points as I read, where did you go? Then in here, she has to find all the where words and circle them. So then here, before she writes the sentence, I always have it already written out for her on a wipeable laminated piece of paper. And but before she writes it, I always make the sentence relevant to her. So today I asked her, Layla, where do you live? And my expectation would be that she'd say in a house, which she drew here, but she was insisting she lived in the zoo because we talked about the zoo animals. So finally I told her, no, Layla, we live in a house. So let's write the sentence. So she wrote, where do you live? And she does that all on her own. And then I pulled up a picture of a house on my phone on Google Images. And I just said, can you draw the house that we live in? And she drew the house. So that's what we do for that. And as I mentioned, this is always the last thing we do with every session. And she knows that once we do this, and then that's the end of homeschool. That signals the end of our homeschooling session. So we just are consistent with that every day. And so that's it. So daily work calendar, writing, animal theme was sorting farm and zoo animals and the farm story. And then we ended like we usually do every day with our sight word activity book. So just thought I'd share.